This AI stuff is coming for my job, and I am terrified.
It's touching everything, and it's going to continue to touch everything and proliferate in ways that people don't expect. And it doesn't help that Bill Gates came out, I think it was last week, and said that in 3 years, people won't have to work because AI will do everything, right? And so you have that, and you have some of these people that are trusted or whatever, that maybe they get more news cycles, and their word is, gospel. Oh, this is what's coming. The fact of the matter is that there will always be a human in the loop. To what degree, we don't know.
Welcome, everyone, to the 1% Edge podcast. Here we have the privilege of meeting amazing guests and having conversations about their journeys and getting 1% better every day. And today, we're honored to have Chad Sanderson as my first podcast guest. Welcome, Chad.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited to have you here because I really wanted to talk about AI, hot topic of the day, but really about AI both in business and in our personal lives, and really get you to share some of your insights on how we can adapt and maybe even thrive in this new world of AI.
Awesome. So when you talk AI is a massive, right? It's a massive topic. Everybody's talking about it today. Everybody loves the hype, the promise of a undefinable future. The question becomes, I'm curious from your perspective, when you think of AI, what comes to mind?
Yeah, it's a good question. So first off, that was one on my list to get you to define it for me. But I think of it as technology, right? We got this new wave of technology workplace that we could use to either make us more productive or even replace some manual tasks that, hey, we just don't need somebody for anymore. And I know that sounds horrible, but I mean, as you go back through the ages, this has happened over and over again, right? Yep. You don't have an individual spraying the car with paint in a factory. You have a machine doing it these days.
Yep. So the interesting thing is that, AI's got the hype cycle right now, but AI is not new. All right. It's been around. AI is actually, artificial intelligence is really a field of study. And for many years, it was actually machine learning, and people would refer to it as AI. And then we've continued to evolve it. We get to what is capturing everybody's attention, which is generative AI today. And so AI as a field isn't new. What is really new is kind of twofold. It's the generative component of it, which was GPT 3.5 that came out in November of 22, and that's when everybody started paying attention to it because, oh wow, it can create these new images, new text, new sounds. The other component to it, and what makes this unique in terms of impacts for business and for individuals, is the speed at which this is happening. And so if you think back, the analogy I typically use is like, okay, the iPhone came out and everybody was like, wow, right? It was amazing. And the iPhone took off. It spawned a whole bunch of new businesses, but it took a few years before they got rid of the headphone jack. You remember the headphone jack? And when they got rid of the headphone jack, everybody freaked out. Like, oh, now I've got to... And there was this whole talk of like, is Apple just trying to do a new business model, push some new things? But that took a few years, right? It was a long time after it came out before they changed the form factor. The difference with generative AI is the speed at which it is improving is like the iPhone came out, let's say last January, and by December, they were already at an iteration where they were beyond headphone jacks at all and only Bluetooth. And it happened in such a compressed time frame that individuals can't really adapt and businesses truly can't adapt fast enough to help absorb the speed of what's happening. And combined with the fact that if you use Apple as an example, Apple was a business. Apple drove that innovation. But when you look at the adoption that's happening with Gen AI, it's happening at the individual level. It is accessible to individuals. They're bringing it in, whether the business wants it in there or not, or the business has figured out how to adapt to it or apply it. Individuals are using it, and it's kind of wild, wild west. And what you think today has a tendency to change in the next 10 to 15 days as things continue to advance. So staying on top of that rate of change as an individual is a challenge, and adapting to it from a business standpoint is proving to be an even larger challenge based on the number of failed, strategic implementation attempts that we've seen.
So I did my homework a little bit before this call, and I was trying to look at research. What's funny is, I'm going to quote a Boston Consulting Group project from 2024, which in one hand you go, that's like 100 years ago in AI's time, right? But what they were saying is 74% of companies are struggling to achieve and scale value in their AI investments. And let's just fast forward, because that's my question to you. It still seems like today, even if you get companies to want to adapt AI, few are doing it in a way that they can scale it and get real value out of it. Is that right? Is that wrong? What do you think?
No, you're right. And so what you start to see is like proliferation of like existing tools that bolt on. Oh, we have AI. We have this piece of tech in this tool, right? Salesforce has got Agentforce, and anything that you're using, any tool that you're using in business today is probably telling you that they've implemented some type of AI, which if you really think about it and look at what they're implementing is largely 12 to 18 month old technology that they're implementing in these existing platforms. And the frontier models, the larger LLMs or other models, are moving faster, which means the individual has access to a tool set that your business platforms can't provide at this point. So there's this disparity in the speed, right? So part of the problem that we're seeing is that organizations look at the technology just like they used to look at SaaS tech or new tech. Hey, I'm going to add this to my Jenga stack of ridiculous amounts of technology I have because that's going to solve my problem. If tech was going to solve the problem, it would have done it already. Right? This is really, you're in a situation where if you're not addressing the human element in this, you're not going to be effective, because it isn't like just making a gear spin faster, although that's what everybody wants to talk about. Oh, I can automate these tasks. I can get this improvement in efficiency and things like that. Basically what you're doing is saying, hey, I have a car and AI allows me to put a turbocharger on it so I can get from point A to point B faster. And that's the old school industrial revolution thinking, when really what you have is the ability to reinvent conveyance and empower your teams and your organizations to come up with innovation as a culture, innovation as a mindset, part of the DNA that's enabled in tech, so you can iterate and move from kind of linear thinking to more iterative thinking and approaches to problems. The challenge is organizations can't move fast enough. They historically have been horrible with change initiatives. Like we know firsthand just how horrible large organizations are at adopting true change across an org. And you put those rigid structures in place with a dynamic thought process that's required to leverage this effectively, combined with the speed at which it is improving and proliferating. And really the sweet spot is going to be for those SMBs or mid-market companies who can be more agile in their approach to leveraging and implementing the technology, whereas the larger behemoths are the ones that are going to struggle just because they're so huge and almost too big to fail, if you will, right? You can't move them fast enough, and so you end up with a mess. You end up with things happening internally that the org can't control, and your predictability goes out the window. So everybody wants to use that safe thinking of, hey, okay, I got a new piece of tech. I'm going to invest in, putting this tech out there. But this isn't like putting a SaaS application out there where it's like, okay, I got to put this information in this field and this information in this field. It's not like that. You're basically giving somebody a genie, and you have to teach them how to talk to it and understand it, to interact with it. And it's the caliber of that individual's thoughts and the way they think will directly impact the outputs that they get and what's possible inside of the organization. Right now, everybody's using outdated thinking. They're not agile enough. They're not moving fast enough, and they're not empowering their people to do the things that are truly possible with this technology.
All right, so you mentioned a lot of stuff in there, so let's unpack a couple of pieces of it. One of which I'd like to unpack is the business side of it, because you and I both work with technology companies on the, let's say, AI kind of enabled stuff, and we work with clients. And so I'm going to go back to that in a second. But the other side of it, just to give you a heads up, is the people part of it. So I don't want to forget that in our conversation. Yep. Back to the company thing. It's funny because, hey, we get them to like a new piece of technology, which let's say it's powered by AI, and like, this is amazing. And it takes them 4 to 6 months to just get through their security process to get it on board. And then what they were buying 6 months ago is almost a different product today.
It is drastically a different product. And this is when I talk about the speed, right? So like anybody who's ever worked with enterprise clients, like we both have, we always budget in time because we know they move ridiculously slow. The minute they say, oh, we're going to do legal or procurement or infosec, basically what we hear on this side is the brakes screeching as everything comes to a halt because those organizations don't move fast to begin with. Well, now you have, and we've seen this together. We've seen an organization actually be able to get budget approval to do something, and it's still 4 months later, 5 months later before they start the InfoSec security review. And you're right, it's a drastically different product, which requires a even different way of thinking. And so are they going to get the value out of it? Or are they even going to get it done, like to get it implemented before maybe that product becomes yet a third iteration? It creates a challenge for the businesses. How do they really adopt this constantly iterating technology? The only way that we've seen people be effective, or organizations and teams be effective, is by really balancing that human element with the technology, because this isn't the same tech that we were using 5-10 years ago. It's something completely different, and it requires a new way of thinking and an approach.
All right, so let's bring it back to that human piece. And like I said, I did a little bit of homework. So there's a McKinsey report out there that notes that employees, and you mentioned this earlier, are utilizing AI regularly. Like the people side of the equation, out in the trenches, they're curious and they want to learn more, and they're playing with it and adapting it and pulling it into their daily lives, whether you're in marketing or you're in development or no matter the role, right? I even know executives that are playing with it. In fact, one company I know has literally encouraged its employees, hey, this is the year of AI. I need you all to find new ways for us to use AI to become more efficient and more productive. And he's thrown that out to his employee base. So from your point of view, well, how does an employee survive? Got any tips for them? Like, how do I make it through this world? I mean, do I take an AI class, or, what do I do?
Yeah, so there is absolutely no way that any one individual or one, let's say, touch point is going to be able to stay on top of all of this all the time, all the ways. It's just moving way too fast. So the first thing I would say is, as an individual, find a community somewhere where people are talking about it in new ways, or ways that are helping you think differently about it, that also can provide you with the relevant, salient kind of evolution. Because every morning when you wake up, there's something new that somebody's talking about. The question becomes, is it hype or is it substantive, right? A change. So the key would be, first and foremost, find a community. The second one would be anchor on one of the LLMs, anchor on one of the models. So you've got ChatGPT, you've got Grok, you've got Copilot, you've got Llama, you've got Gemini, right? You've got Claude, and more, right? DeepSeek, and all of these things. At the end of the day, they all will reach parity. They may not be, one may be a little bit further ahead than another. Just anchor on one and get to know it really, really well, because eventually whatever you're learning there will be applicable to other models. Some models are better at certain things than others, so don't hesitate to experiment a little, but don't go out and try and learn all of them. You're going to get some of the same consistency, and you're going to get a deeper understanding if you're just anchoring on one, right? One model. We at DPMNX, we anchor on ChatGPT, although we do have a host of all the others and play with them. But all of our custom GPTs, all of the AI agents that we're working with or building, those are things that we're doing anchoring on GPT. So don't feel like you have to keep it all straight. Just pick one. In terms of education, this is where it gets interesting. So you can't swing a dead cat without hitting some AI class out there that wants to teach you how to write a prompt, or how to do this or do that. those are all well and good, but all it's doing is it's approaching your education in the same linear fashion that we've attempted to enable people before. It's not helping you think differently about it, right? It's not helping you enhance that cognitive flexibility or the creativity or even improve your emotional intelligence, right? You need to find something that's going to help upskill the human side of this component. Otherwise, you're just going to be in a situation where whatever you learn is eventually going to be replaceable or automatable. And so you need to not only kind of anchor in the tech, but understand how the tech works and responds in different situations based on how you're approaching it and what you're using it for. It's not a simple, 1 + 1 = 2 equation anymore, right? You have to understand how to be much more iterative in your approach. The other thing I would say is you got to get comfortable with change. Like, nobody likes it. Everybody wants to say, "Oh, I don't like change." Well, okay, sorry. That horse is out of the barn. Change is the new normal. If you can't find a way to achieve some kind of balance and grounding and parity in that, you're already behind, right? It just becomes, it's the new normal. And so find a way to get excited about it. Find a way that it, taps into something that you care about. Like, there's a couple people I know who, I live deep in this AI hole. They don't. They always were like, that's interesting. And it was the ability for ChatGPT to take a picture of your refrigerator and provide you 5 recipes you can make with the ingredients in your refrigerator in under 20 minutes that made them go, oh, maybe I should pay attention to this. This could be interesting. So figure out a way that you can spark your own curiosity and then see if you can transfer that to the business as well.
All right, I love that. All right, let me ask you this $1 million question, which you and I have had multiple times over cocktails. This AI stuff is coming for my job, and I am terrified.
Well, and so it doesn't help. Okay, yes, and it doesn't help that Bill Gates came out, I think it was last week, and said that in 3 years, people won't have to work because AI will do everything, right? And so you have that, and you have some of these people that are trusted or whatever, that maybe they get more news cycles, and their word is, gospel. Oh, this is what's coming. The fact of the matter is that there will always be a human in the loop. To what degree, we don't know. But it isn't AI that's going to replace your job. It's individuals who know how to think differently with the technology and apply it in unique and innovative ways will replace those people who don't spend any time with it, who don't work to understand it in some way, shape, form, or fashion, because it's touching everything, and it's going to continue to touch everything and proliferate in ways that people don't expect. So the only thing that is limiting people from, we call it remaining relevant, is their own willingness to be curious, right? To play with it a little bit, to experiment with it a little bit, to lean in a little bit. So it isn't AI that's going to replace your job. It's your lack or unwillingness to lean in and play with it, combined with the fact that people that know how to use it will be able to automate you out of a job. So there's a huge piece of this that is self-responsibility, which I know a lot of people aren't real big fans of. But at the end of the day, that's going to be, I think, the secret sauce, is that ability to kind of look at the technology and use it, get comfortable with it to some extent, and be able to, just see where the flow goes. Not ignore it completely, and don't fall into the trap of, oh, I took a prompting class, so now I know how to use it. Prompting is so 2024.
Well, I am a AI toddler. I wouldn't even call it preschool, maybe. But I will share a story with everybody. A couple of weeks ago, I had to write this one pager. Let's call it that. And it's how what we do on the sales side impacts different departments. Like, we've had this conversation a million times. I just don't have it in a one pager, and that's what the individual wanted, to kind of champion this cause internally. Makes perfect sense. I'll do it. And I procrastinated for days. And I go, I'll do it tomorrow morning. And I get up in the morning like, yeah, I think I'd rather do something else. And I dragged my feet for days. And all I wanted to say was, eventually I got off my ass. And yes, I prompted ChatGPT with some sources, what I wanted to do, some parameters, which departments, and I hit enter. And I asked for sources along the way, And it came back with this beautiful one pager that I read through. And I even go, where the hell did I get that from? Ooh, I didn't even know that was out there. And I sent it out to my partners. I go, hey, here's my first draft. Love your feedback. And then I went back through and I edited stuff. Now, why do I share this long, boring story with you? Folks, if I didn't know as much as I do know about my topic, and I haven't been doing this for years like Chad has as well, and I was fresh out of college, hit the same prompt, hit enter, I would have gotten the same content, but I wouldn't have been able to look through it and make the edits that I made. Not that it was, grammatically incorrect, because Lord knows I can't spell, but the fact that hey, I would use this word. I would talk about this team versus just this one aspect of it. Hey, I would talk about these outcomes. I would connect this one and that one together based on my experience to make that point, because I think that's important to this team. So I might have made 8 or 10 small little edits to create my final version. But I bring that up because AI by itself was great. And yes, maybe going to get to the point where it could have done those 8 to 10 things without me. But today, at least in my use of it, I think those 8 to 10 things changed the tone, made it personalized, and made it great. And in the other part of it, I did look at all the sources to make sure, if someone else would have looked at it, they would have, it has sources, I'm good.
Yeah, well, that's essentially keeping the human in the loop, right? You have to know what the tech is good for, and you have to be able to apply the critical thinking and the analysis to look at it and say, okay, this is good, but it doesn't sound realistic. It doesn't sound like me. It's not the way I would come across. I don't necessarily agree with that perspective like that. Let me tweak it like this. It will help get you 75, 80% of the way there. But if you don't have the ability to apply the critical thinking and the cognitive flexibility to get the rest of the 20%, then somebody else could have done that same thing. And so being able to up-level yourself as you're using the tech is really the secret sauce. And unfortunately, not a lot of people are focusing on that because hey, it's a shiny new tech. It makes the gear spin faster. Yeah, great. So how do you differentiate what you're doing versus what the tech is doing? That's this ability to keep that human in the loop and apply those human skills that are going to differentiate people and keep them relevant in business.
All right, Chad. Let's talk a little bit about yourself and why anybody should listen to you. Give me a little bit of background.
Why anybody should listen to me?
I do, and I think it's awesome, and you've had an amazing career. Help our listeners understand just a little bit about your background, and then we can talk a little bit about Deep Human X, the big shiny sign in the background for those folks that aren't just listening to the podcast.
So for me, I've spent over 25 years in tech in one way, shape, form, or fashion. So from marketing to sales to running global teams. And probably 15 of those years were spent working with large transformational projects, right? Whether that be digital transformation projects or revenue operations transformations. And what I have seen throughout my career is, number one, those larger organizations struggle to make those transformations happen. But then in addition to that, we've seen a decline in critical thinking at the employee or even manager or leader level. In just the last 6 years, we're talking pre-AI, and now with AI, there's even new research that you'll see us put out called the delusion effect, which is basically if you over-rotate on AI, you can further reduce your ability to think critically. And so when you look at all of that, I've been very lucky to work with some of the largest brands on the planet and do some pretty amazing stuff. But at the heart of it, I really wanted to see people be empowered, people to be able to get back to enjoying the way they work, right? I've worked with enough people that are miserable. I've worked in positions where I was miserable. And so when we saw GPT 3.5 come out in November of 22, I reached out to my other co-founder, Lori, who has a neuroscience background, and we started talking about going through all of those changes that we had attempted to help organizations make and figured out where they failed and what was the thinking that was kind of not flexible enough to do it, to come up with an approach that combines all of that research on how effective people can be if they are purpose-driven with this technology and up-leveling their human skills, to come up with a way that will hopefully keep people relevant, but also a hell of a lot happier, right? And having more fun in their work. For me, it's this constant need to feed my head. Like I consume more data, read more stuff, probably to the detriment of many of the relationships in my life. But I'm just endlessly curious about what's possible here or what's possible there. And I learned the hard way through 25 years that failure is my friend, right? I want to pivot. I want to get to a point where I can pivot fast and get comfortable with the failure. I'd rather fail early at something, pivot and try something else, and understand that I'm going to learn more lessons from that than I am for something that was wildly successful. And even when in some of the awards and stuff, there was an award at one point that I set my heart on. I was like, I'm going to do everything I can to get this award, and I got it. And it was extremely anticlimactic. It was like, okay, next. Like, this is fun. Like, get comfortable being uncomfortable. For me, that's kind of where I thrive, and that's taken time to get used to. But I don't know. It's been part of the secret, I think, to my success to this point.
I think it's a great point. It's almost funny for us to say, I encourage failure, but through trying, which is what most people don't do, you might fail, but those failures are the ones that you learn something. And that was part of the reason for the podcast too, is we're either getting 1% better every day or we're learning something.
Yep.
It's not that, or we fail. It's, well, we learned. Don't do it like that tomorrow. Right. Don't get off the couch tomorrow. Maybe go for a run tomorrow versus sitting there, right? So whatever it is, we're either getting better or we're learning something. Standing still and doing nothing is going to teach you nothing. Yep. And it's funny because I will look back, when I look back at my career, I go, it's those times that I struggled, overcame, but failed along the way that I learned the most important lessons versus the one, hey, you won. You're one of the best. Yeah. Yeah, I knew that already.
Yeah, we don't suffer from an overdose of humility.
All right. Deep Human X. Tell me a little bit more about it. Why would people want to engage with it?
So with Deep Human X, our goal is to help people balance that human and machine equation, to help give you repeatable frameworks that will help you think differently, and through the application of them, doing the work, trying, as you say, be able to up-level your ability to apply critical thinking, cognitive flexibility, emotional intelligence, and balance it with what the tech is really good at. At the heart of it, all human beings run patterns. There's patterns that we all share. How we respond to it is different, right? Each person, the human element, everybody has that, right? Our brains, our hearts, our guts are all connected to get you that sense of intelligence. But what you do with it and how you respond to it, the patterns that you choose to activate are different. And the technology now with AI, since it's mirrored off of neuroscience and the way the human brain works, it's running patterns too. And so really understanding that balance is kind of the key is what we're here to do. And at the same time, help organizations figure out how to be successful with their AI strategies, empower and enable their employees, but do it in a way that they can own their future, right? We're not looking to recreate the old consulting models where people back up with a busload of MBAs and they stick around for 20 years. It's not needed anymore. What we want to do is enable organizations to own their future, and in doing so, up-level their employees so that they not only are relevant, but can redefine what the future of work looks like.
And is Deep Human X really more for organizations, for them to kind of, hire you folks to work with their people, or is it also for individuals? Like, hey, I'm working for one of those old, big, stodgy groups. Can I still raise my hand and do it? I'm just trying to figure out who would be the audience.
Yeah, so because AI adoption is being driven by individuals, we decided we needed to make it accessible to individuals and not be just a business-to-business kind of solution. So we have offerings that individuals can tap into, the community that we run, some of the online courses, they can access those on their own, and it's, feed yourself at will kind of thing. We work with SMBs and mid-market companies and select teams inside of enterprises, and I'll come back to that, to help them innovate around challenges that they have in the business today, do it by understanding what's possible with AI, and basically running innovation workshops. We're going to teach you how to use AI to innovate so that you can redefine how you want to put it into the organization, but also get some immediate short-term business impacts out of it. The reason we focus on SMBs and mid-market is the agility, right? Large scale organizations that are structured in that industrial revolution hierarchy, that's not going to work in the future. Like, we're already seeing that happen and it's playing itself out. So on the enterprise side, we do have some enterprise clients where we'll work with teams, specific teams inside of the enterprise, but we're not the organization that believes that the current existing hierarchical structure has a long shelf life, and nor is it any fun to work with. So for us, we're accessible to individuals. We're happy to engage with individuals, and we provide resources for individuals, but we really shine when we're working with those SMBs or those mid-market companies that are ready to seize the opportunity to leapfrog their competition in ways they didn't think were possible before.
Nice. All right. I promise to keep these podcasts around 30 minutes. So here's my final question, and you've had some great insights. What might be that one piece of advice, business or personal, that you would share with our listeners to help them be as successful as you have been?
Yeah, so this is the one piece I would say is earn your expectations, right? You have to own your own future because nobody's going to do it for you. You can't expect anything. You have to be willing to put in the work, take the bumps and bruises, learn as you go, and continually set your sight on just making sure you're better tomorrow than you were today, rather than thinking there's this big end goal that's going to get you, you know, that big happiness, ring the bell kind of thing. This is a journey, right? And you're in control of it. And anytime you believe that somebody else is getting in the way, you have the power to make the choices. And it's hard to accept that. And I'll be honest, it took a lot of years of therapy for me to get to realize that. But at the end of the day, you can't stand around and wait for somebody else. You have to take control and responsibility for yourself. And if you're not willing to do that, you know, then don't whine about it.
Love it. So Chad, hey, I really appreciate you doing the podcast with me, brother. If people want to get a hold of you, hire you, or learn more about X, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can hit deephumanx.com. You'll see a whole bunch of information on the website. You can shoot me an email at chad.sanderson@deephumanx.com as well, or reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to have a conversation with anybody who is curious at this point, whether it's a fit or not.
And I can vouch for you, Chad. You're one of the few people out there that's actually used AI-enabled tools to even create the website and some of the content behind it. I think it's an awesome story. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, brother.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me be the first guest.
You got it. You got me into this. He's the one that introduced me to podcasting, so I figured it's only fair game to pull you back in. All right, everyone, that does it for this episode. Please subscribe, and hey, we won't be here without you, so please subscribe to the podcast, and I wish everyone a great day.